someone stands up at a dinner table. They lift their glass into the air. Everyone else lifts theirs too, and only then starts drinking. Nobody questions it. Nobody asks why a drink needs a speech first, or why the glass has to go up before it goes to your mouth. It just happens at weddings, at birthdays, at ordinary dinners with friends. Why does a drink need a ceremony attached to it before anyone's allowed to enjoy it? Start in ancient Greece. Centuries before anyone called this a toast, wine at a Greek meal wasn't just a drink. It was treated as a gift from Dionysus, the god associated with wine and festivity, and drinking it came with an unspoken debt. Before the cup reached a guest's lips, a small amount of wine was often poured out first, offered to the gods rather than consumed. That's a libation, a deliberate pouring out of a drink as an offering. The raised cup that came after wasn't decoration. It was the human half of a transaction that had already started with the gods getting theirs. Rome inherited the habit and gave it a name that survives. In a roundabout way, into your dinner tonight. Wine quality in the ancient world was inconsistent, and a fair amount of it was simply bad. Romans developed a workaround. They dropped a piece of charred bread into the cup. The scorched bread pulled some of the acidity out of the wine and made a poor batch drinkable. The Latin word for that toasted bread, was, is where the English word toast comes from, so the drink didn't get its name from the act of celebrating. It got it from a piece of bread floating in a cup, put there to fix a wine problem. That bread in the cup habit didn't disappear when Rome did. It resurfaced centuries later in England, still doing the same job. By the 16th century, dropping spiced or scorched toast into wine or ale to soften a rough batch was common enough that Shakespeare could reference it and expect his audience to get the joke without explanation. In The Merry Wives of Windsor, the character Falstaff demands a large quantity of wine and asks for it. Put a toast in't. That single line is one of the earliest surviving written records connecting the word toast to a drink, and it shows the practice was already familiar, not new, by the time he wrote it. Here's the part worth pausing on, because a lot of people already think they know it. You may have heard that clinking glasses together started as a safety check against poison, the idea being that banging cups hard enough would splash drinks between them, so nobody could poison you without poisoning themselves. It's a memorable story. It also isn't supported by the historical record. Researchers at institutions like the École Hôtelière de Lausanne, which studies the history of hospitality customs, have pointed out there's no documented evidence tying the clink itself to poison prevention, and the theory tends to circulate as folklore rather than something historians can actually trace to a source. The real through line isn't defense against poison. It's dedication, a drink offered to someone out loud on purpose. That dedication is really the thread connecting the Greek libation to the Roman bread to whatever happens at a wedding reception this weekend. The Latin verb propino, meaning to drink to someone's health, captures it directly. A cup wasn't just consumed, it was aimed at somebody. You drank to a person, a cause, a piece of good fortune, and saying so out loud was the whole point of lifting the glass in the first place. By the 17th and 18th centuries, especially in English social life, this had hardened into something closer to an obligation than a nicety. At a formal dinner, every glass of wine was expected to be dedicated to someone. Tipping the gesture wasn't seen as casual or relaxed. It read as an insult, practically an accusation that nobody at the table was worth honoring. English toasting clubs formed specifically around this ritual, groups of men who met to drink formal toasts to public figures or absent friends, turning what had started as a religious offering into an organized social institution with its own etiquette. Around the same period, the word toast itself shifted meaning again. It stopped referring to the bread in the cup and started referring to the person being honored by the cup. Popular, well-liked figure became known as the toast of the town, a phrase that only makes sense once you know a toast used to mean a person, not a party trick. Notice what happened along the way. The bread is long gone from your glass. Nobody's pouring wine onto the floor for Dionysus at a birthday dinner. The idea that you might be checking your drink for poison never had solid evidence behind it to begin with. And yet the core gesture, lifting a glass and dedicating it to someone before drinking, never actually left. It just kept getting repackaged. Ancient religious offering became Roman flavor fix, became English social obligation, became the thing you do at your best friend's wedding without thinking twice about where it came from. That's really the pattern worth noticing here. Most surviving customs don't survive because someone in the 18th century or the 6th century BC made a deliberate decision that people 3,000 years later needed to keep doing this exact thing. They survive because the emotional core underneath them, in this case, the impulse to publicly mark a moment as meaningful before sharing a drink over it, kept being useful long after the specific reasons attached to it stopped mattering. Nobody today believes wine belongs to a god. Nobody's worried about spiking anyone's drink at a rehearsal dinner. But the instinct to pause, to say a name out loud, to make everyone wait one extra second before they drink, apparently didn't need those older beliefs to keep functioning. It just needed people who still wanted a moment to matter. So, next time you're at a table and somebody stands up, taps their glass, and waits for the room to go quiet before they start talking, you're not watching a modern tradition. You're watching a Greek offering to Dionysus, a Roman fix for bad wine, and an English social rule about respect, all folded into 30 seconds before anyone's allowed to take a sip.